Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Blockbuster Video asked, how do we make more money? So they added overpriced candy at the checkouts. Netflix asked, how do we give people better entertainment at home? Now, you know how that ended, right? Now, today's guest wrote the book literally on why the distinction is between companies that thrive and companies that die. It's called Leading with Noble Purpose. And our guest today has worked with companies like Google and Hilton, just to mention a few. And our guest today is a lady called Lisa McLeod. We actually have a lot of close alliances in the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches community. Now, Lisa is an expert on what we call purpose-driven businesses. She's got a framework and a methodology. She's also a best-selling author. She's written 5 different books and is constantly seen as a thought leader in Global Gurus, which is a great recognition. She contributes on a regular basis to Harvard Business Review. This is going to be a great conversation, and really looking forward to. So without further ado, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here.
Absolutely, 100%. Really looking forward to today's conversations. We've got quite a few people in our circle that is all song and praise for you. And I know that you've worked with some big brands, Google, Hilton, they're big brands, big teams, but you also mentor some of the smaller firms, don't you? And
I do.
And when you kind of look at how firms sell, what's the fundamental mistake that a lot of the smaller businesses make over, say, some of the big corporates?
So you brought it up at the very beginning when you talked about the difference between Blockbuster, which is a big US video rental company, if anyone's old enough to remember, and Netflix, which I know you all know, which saved our marriages during COVID. But the difference, the mistake that people make, and what's interesting is the mistake happens when you start to scale. And the same mistake happens when you go from 3 or 4 people to 25 people, or when you go from 500 people to 5,000 people. And this is the mistake.
Okay.
And it's what happens big and small. And it's the Blockbusters, which originally went into business because they knew that people wanted videos at home. But as the business gets bigger, you look away from customer impact and you look to how can we make more money? Money is fine. Everyone needs money, but no one ever came up with a great idea sitting in a room looking at their financials saying, how can we make more money? That, like, you don't innovate. You don't connect with customers that way. So Blockbuster's saying, how can we make more money? Netflix says, how can we provide great entertainment at home? One is an internal question. The other's an external question. The way I see this playing out in small firms, sometimes it even happens in the mind of the owner. So you've got this great idea. I'm going to start this consulting company, or I'm going to be an IT service specialist. And it's usually because you see a need in the market. And you see someone should be doing that. You tried to hire it yourself. You couldn't find anybody. You were working inside a big company and you're like, I could do this much better. So you see this need, you have a need in the market, but then that sight line on how am I improving life for customers, you shift your focus to say, how can we increase our deal size? How can we increase our close rate? Those are very valid questions, but they're not going to bring you closer to customers. And so it's shifting the North Star from external customer impact, which is where all the money is, all the revenue is, all the brand reputation, it all sits right there at customer impact. And when you shift to looking internal at your own spreadsheets, you lose your mojo and you become undifferentiated.
I think it's really interesting. Always thought that purpose sales or purpose profitability, whichever
Yeah.
you want to call it, I thought that, and think of me as being a slightly naive, but I
Mhm.
always treated them as two very separate things.
Yeah. And most people do.
Okay, fine. So it wasn't just me then.
No, and I spent years as a sales trainer where the impetus for I wrote Selling with Noble Purpose and Leading with Noble Purpose. And the impetus for those books came because I spent years as a sales trainer, then as a sales consultant, and I watched people talk inside the company about here's our value proposition, here's what differentiates us, here's the questions we want to ask our customers, here's how much we need to know about them. And it all sounded good in the conference room. Then they go out and meet with the customer, and all the behavior is around how can I close this as fast as I can. And it's because the true north of sales has traditionally been the number. The number is the outcome. The true north of sales is improving life for customers. And to be clear, the companies that have implemented this have outperformed the S&P by over 350%. So I'm not talking about giving away the store. This is the path to make more money.
Fascinating. Very, very interesting. And I love that thought. I think probably, and again, I'll go back to my naivety. And I think probably where the whole ideology of purpose was just seen as kind of like soft skills, bit of fluff,
Right.
right? And again, I think it also depends on self-awareness and, well, self-awareness, number one, but also like the importance, how you prioritize one over the other. You're saying that they are very much intertwined with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that so many people, including some of our listeners, they treat it as two very separate things. I want to go back to what you said around the scaling part. You said, quote unquote, the biggest challenge, where it really happens is when businesses are trying to scale. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are all looking to scale or are in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit more meat on the bone with
Yeah.
regards to that? What do you see?
So I'll give you a very concrete example. You mentioned that I have done a lot of work with Hilton, and that's been
Yep.
in the last couple of years. And they've been very public about it. So I'm not sharing any secrets that their CEO has to talk about. So Hilton, great brand, has lots of properties all around the world. You've got everything from the Hilton Garden Inn to the Conrad Hotel. And what's happened in the hotel business, like a lot of businesses, people will still pay for an experience, but they shop in a commoditized way. They go on the internet, they put a shop for rates. I can get a room here for this. They look at the photos. And so Hilton needed a way to differentiate themselves from their big competitor, Marriott. And so Chris Nassetta, who's the CEO of Hilton's a really smart guy, and coming out of COVID, he knew there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. People are going to want to travel. People are going to go, business travelers are going to go meet their customers. People have not gone on vacation in 3 years. And so he said, how can we be ready for this? And how can we be differentiated and not just in this race to the bottom? And they've got high end properties and more moderate properties, but they wanted them all to be differentiated.
Yep.
And so he went back to, and so anyone who's a founder, I would encourage you to do this for yourself. Chris Nassetta went back to Conrad Hilton's writings when he started Hilton Hotel. So if you're a founder, get your brain back to where you were starting this company. What was in your brain? And Conrad Hilton, in this grainy audio, said, our purpose is to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. And so you might think, well, that's just a nice little fluffy thing to have. But let me tell you what we did. We used that, got it all around the globe, which was no mean feat, because what we needed to do was get it to where each person in that company saw their part in filling the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. So I'll give you two examples.
Sure.
I need the front desk clerk in the Hilton Garden Inn in Vietnam to think when that guest walks in, what role am I playing in this?
Mm-hmm.
I need customer service behavior. Another thing that they did, and you've probably seen it in their ads now, is they started thinking, what can we do to make the experience better for the traveler? What's tripping people up? And they started with connecting rooms. If you've ever traveled with children, you think you're going to get connecting rooms, you don't. So now Hilton has, you can do it on the app, you can get connecting rooms, huge competitive advantage.
Beautiful.
And so what happens is the only way to make more money is to sell more and or sell at a higher margin. Like that's it. That's the only way. Sell more stuff and sell it at a higher margin. And what getting clear on your purpose, and your purpose is not, I'm going to, save the planet. I mean, maybe if you run an environmental firm, it is, but your purpose is quite simply, how do you make a difference to customers?
Yes.
How do you improve their life? And it's a little more emotive than the value prop, because the value prop is usually, we provide the best end-to-end. No. How do you make a difference to customers? And your job as a leader is to embed that into every level of the business, so that when you're out selling the business, the conversation isn't about you, it's about customers and how you make a difference. And when you're making decisions, that is the lens in which you make decisions. Now, you also make decisions based on efficiency, based on profitability, and all those things. People are usually clear on those. They're usually not as clear on your unique purpose. And so the firms that do that, Hilton came roaring out of COVID. Hilton achieved, in my opinion, the two holy grails. One, they were voted the best place to work by the employees. Never happened in a hospitality company.
Wow.
You ever worked in a hotel?
I actually worked in Marriott for a little bit, but I was self-employed, so it doesn't really count.
Working in a hotel is really hard.
It's tough.
It's hard. It's late. It's all the beauty the customers get. It's dirty back there.
Yeah.
And so to be voted number one by the employees is huge. That's the first holy grail. And the second holy grail is record profits. Increase market share and profit. So the external measurement of how our customers feeling, they got, because they increase sales and they increase margin. And the internal, how are the employees feeling? And it was all because that CEO did two really smart things. One, he went back in mind, why was this company founded? What is the original purpose? And then he called me, and we worked to get it into the hearts and minds and decision-making of every single person in the company. And that's what did it.
That's interesting. I mean, listen, the hospitality industry is a tough one to crack as well.
Right. Yeah.
Probably one of the hardest.
Shopping online, it's totally transactional. And so that's the thing I hear. I know a lot of your listeners are professional services, and I work with a lot of professional services firms, and it's very frustrating when you have a distinct value, a distinct area of expertise, and then you find yourself commoditized. And everybody thinks, well, we need to write our proposals better. No, you didn't get commoditized when you wrote the proposal. You got commoditized in the customer's eyes right when they started looking.
I think you made a really valid point there around the whole kind of commoditization. And I think that where a lot of founders do slip up is they look at the wrong thing. Yeah. They blame other mitigating factors, which is really small compared to what we're talking about. Would you agree on that?
Absolutely. And it's frustrating because what we're talking about seems gauzy, touchy-feely.
Yeah.
There are two ways you measure business: quantitative and qualitative.
Yep.
And the qualitative drives the quantitative, not the other way around. And so the quantitative results, the P&L, the balance sheet, the ROI, the deal size, the margins on each deal, the cost of sale, like all of that is a lagging indicator. Yep. The leading indicator is what do customers think of you? What is your team thinking when they're interacting with customers? What are the things around the edges? And the good news is you have control over that.
That's true. That's very true. What we've been talking about really is what you're saying is purpose drives profit, not the other way around, right?
Not the other way around.
And I actually thought it was the other way around. So that's quote unquote.
My work here is done.
Absolutely. 100%. Love that. Right. But now, okay. So say for one of our listeners that, I don't know, is running a mid-sized consultancy firm, whatever it is, they've got some solid revenue. The question they'll be asking is, well, why should I really care about purpose? Convince me that this isn't just for the big boys in town.
Right.
That's kind of like the question I think will often come up.
So a smaller firm can actually activate a sense of purpose easier.
Okay.
Because my guess is it's probably already there in a latent way. And what I mean by that is in a smaller firm, if you ask your team how you make a difference to customers, so there's 3 questions. How do we make a difference to customers? How do we do it differently? And on your best day, what do you love about your job? Those are the questions you ask to discover your purpose. And on a smaller team, they usually already know. Because if you've got a small professional services team and they can't describe how they make a difference to customers, you do have a real problem. Because the important thing to understand about purpose is the internal conversation drives the external conversation. So if at Hilton we go around the world and we know that the purpose is to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality, they're a publicly traded company. We got to hit those numbers. Everybody's got quotas. Every housekeeper's got turnaround time. Food and beverage have cover quotas. Like, that's not going away. But if every single person in the company knows my purpose is to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality within my role, then their behavior starts to change. Mm-hmm. Their behavior starts to change, and that becomes the true north. And so if it feels like a touchy-feely thing and you're a small firm and you don't need it, mm-hmm. that's fine. But if your competitor embraces it, they will beat you. Yeah. Because they will be more innovative. They will have a better relationship with their customers. And so it doesn't have to be like Conrad Hilton. I mean, he was a visionary. Fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. Nobody else can say it. We had one small company, and it was a franchise organization. I think they were in one of the books. They were IT support for small businesses. And their purpose was really simple. We help make small businesses more successful. That's it. That's the whole thing. So it doesn't have to be this Conrad Hilton, we're going to change the world. But what that did, their people are IT people. So they're like the nuts and the bolts and the this and all these words that I don't understand in the first sentence. But what it comes down to is we want that guy that owns the bagel shop not to have to worry about this stuff. So our job is to make Mr. Bagel Shop more successful. Yeah. And that becomes the driving north. And so in a smaller firm, it's probably already there in the owner's heart.
I think you made a really valid point there. I think it's much easier to articulate, 100%. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's just what it boils down to is a matter of education and priorities. But again, I think it's about understanding the why. Yeah. If you can fundamentally understand why and the impact it has on mm-hmm. the business, then I think it's much easier to then articulate, okay, well, this is what we really need to prioritize, right?
It helps you. And so it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, we're doing this new software update, and then we've got to redo our personnel the way we did. And it doesn't have to be like this project.
Yes.
It actually is the emotional language that makes all your projects hang together.
Yeah.
And so back to, we may help make small businesses more successful. So I want you to imagine I own a restaurant or a flower shop or my own company, and I have to outsource my IT because I've had it. My husband's not doing it anymore. We're fighting about this all the time. We're going to outsource our IT. And one company comes in and they gives me the dog and pony show, and they seem really good about all their skills, and they do it for this business, they do it for that business, they do it for this. But another company comes in and they seem great, and I would pick them. Okay, they seem good. But then the second company comes in and says, we want to make small businesses more successful. What's hanging you up right now? What's standing in your way? What's keeping you from success? What role does IT play in that? We're having a totally different conversation because we're having a conversation about me and my business. And then I've fed them everything they need to say, well, we can help you with this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. And I go, that sounds great. And so if you've ever lost business and they chose somebody else, and when they chose somebody else, they said, well, we chose them for this reason, this reason, this reason. And you went, well, I could have done that. They had a better conversation with the customer than you did. It wasn't the customer's job to say that. They had a conversation where the customer revealed that, and they went, oh, it sounds like that's a big problem for you. And the reason they did it was because their true north was not espousing their capabilities. Their true north was, what does success mean for this customer? And how can I be a part of that? So it
Ask,
changes everything.
ask smarter questions is the great thing.
Right. But the thing is, we've taught salespeople for centuries to ask better
Yeah.
questions, and then they forget when there's money on the table. And the reason they forget is because the true north is closing, not making the customer more successful.
Yeah, true. Love that. Another thought here, because I know that fundamentally, I know that a lot of our listeners actually, Lisa, that are right now, a lot of the founders that we have, they are the business effectively, right? Even though they may have a team or a small team, whatever it might be, clients buy them for who they are, right?
Oh, believe me, I know.
We know, right? And not the business. They buy into the person, which is great.
Right.
But that also is a challenge because then there's a ceiling on growth, right? There's only so much time in the day or whatever it might be. But it also kills things like exit value, right? It kills that exit. How does the noble purpose help a founder get the business off their back?
Them.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, so like we can look at some very famous examples. Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. But he very successfully, it became Apple was this embodiment. He transferred his ethos to the company.
Yep.
We've got a guy that we work with in the travel space, G Adventures, that wrote about him in the book, Bruce Poon Tip. It was him, but he transferred that to the company. And the way you transfer it to the company, and this is really important, it will make your company easier to sell and you will get a higher metric upon selling it, is if you can get clear on the purpose. How do you make a difference? How do you do it differently? If you can get clear on, you make small businesses more successful, and you can spend a year embedding that into not only your people, but getting them, even if you've got support staff that, answers the phone or does the help desk, if you can embed that into your customers, then you start to have a business that lives beyond you. Yeah. Because then the business is about how this company makes me more successful, not about Adam's the greatest guy in the world. I'm sure you are. And I'm already getting some good. But if you're looking at, I want to be able to exit in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, a longer runway is going to make it a little easier, then you need to be able to demonstrate this isn't just like in my business, this isn't just a Lisa McLeod show.
Right.
There's some real teeth here about this thing that we do for customers. And I've codified it enough. It doesn't have to be the end of the earth. It can just be, we help make small businesses more successful. We have 10 different ways we do that. If I've codified it enough that someone else looks at that business, they can pick it up and do that. They don't have to be Steve Jobs.
Right.
Like, they don't feel like, well, I don't have, even if you're trying to sell a one-person business with maybe a little bit of support staff to another person who's going to take it over, they need to see, here is what this thing does, because that's what'll get you the better multiple, because some of this is cut and dried and the accountants are going to look at it. But let's be honest. There's the go, no-go decision, which is often not just cut and dried. It's what's in the buyer's heart. And there's also some room around the margins. And there's also your annuity income, which you want to have in place if you're going to finance it, or there's going to be some percentage back to you. And if it's just based on, like if I sat right here and said, well, I did this for Hilton and I spoke everywhere and they love me and da-da-da-da. Well, who's going to buy that? Yeah. But if I say there is a cut and dried methodology that we use with Hilton and someone else can pick this up and do it, and it was not dependent on me, that's worth something.
Yeah. And I'm sure that questions have come up when, clients have come to you and they're building something beautiful. Mm-hmm. How do you go about advising people about transferring that? What do you want to call it? Purpose, vision, intellectual property, whatever it is. Like if you go back to what Steve Jobs had gone back to, he was transferring his what he was about to Apple and what people thought in terms of memory. Is there a practical exercise that our listeners should go away with for that?
So I'll give you 3 things.
Yep.
Just pick a purpose. Doesn't have to be Conrad Hilton flowery. We help small businesses be more successful. Look in the book. There's a whole list of them in the book. You can literally, if one of them works for you, copy it. So be clear on that. That's
Be clear
number
on the
one.
purpose. Right.
Number two, come up with some examples of when you're already doing that.
Okay.
Couple of stories that illustrate what it looks like.
So we're talking about experiences and insight.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if we help make small businesses more successful, here's what we did for the bagel shop, and here's how they're more successful.
Yep. Perfect.
Here's what we did for this, and here. So this becomes a real thing.
Yeah.
So you've got the true north, which is your purpose. You've got examples of how you're already doing it, because you wouldn't have customers if you weren't.
That's true. That's true.
So you've got the stories, and we call them customer impact stories. Mm-hmm. And it's really important because it's not, here's what we sold, blah, blah, blah. It's here's how we made a difference to customers. So that's the second thing, is the stories. And then the third thing is the way you embed it as a behavior with your team so that it happens when you're not in the room, is every time you encounter a customer situation, you ask this single question: how is this customer different as a result of doing business with us? Mm-hmm. So if the customer calls in, they're having a problem with your software, whatever. Okay, how are they different as a result of doing business with us? And how can we make that better? Do more of that. But that becomes the true north, and you embed it as a behavior.
Yep.
So you've got clarity about the purpose, examples of it happening, and then you establish this question to shift behavior. Because first you shift mindset away from themselves to the customer, and then the behavior follows.
Love that. So, that's a great practical exercise. And I think for you guys that are listening in, by the way, if you are at a point of scaling your business right now and you're kind of thinking yourself, you know what, maybe over the next 3 to 5 years, you want to eventually exit. I think that's a great practical exercise that Lisa has actually left you. Because again, I always find, I don't know about you, Lisa, but I always find that that's where a lot of our listeners, they get stuck, right? They just get stuck. They get on the hamster wheel and they're scratching their heads thinking like, how do I get out this business? Right.
Right.
And I think that practical exercise is really going to help some of our listeners to really, I suppose, step away the Steve Jobs way. Well, maybe not the Steve way, but you know what I mean, right?
So I heard something about 20 years ago, before I'd written these books or anything, and it made a forever impact on me. Okay. I was working as was it 20 years ago? Maybe 30 years ago? I don't know. long ass time ago. And so I was working as a sales trainer where I just got paid by the day by a big sales training company. I was early in my career. I had little kids. I knew it was a day rate thing, but it wasn't like I was never going to do anything but get incremental gains or bill more days. That was, so it kind of looked like I was self-employed, but I was really just a contract player. And I was at this event and this woman spoke and she said, if you can't, in your business, if you can't go out to dinner with your partner or go watch your kid's soccer game without your business making money for you when you're not there, you don't have a business. You have a job and you work for a crazy person. My God. I was like, I work for a lunatic and her name is Lisa. My God, this is terrible. But I remember that because she was right. I'm the one saying, you got to build more days. You got to build more days. You got to build more days. And there's never a moment where money is being made where I'm not doing it. And it changed my life. This realization that I worked for a crazy person named Lisa just was life-changing because I thought, well, I need a business, not a job.
Exactly. Yep. But I think you made a great example of that. And I loved that because I speak to a lot of founders and, I was just speaking to one the other day and they're like, yeah, I have these aspirations. I want to exit, but dude, you built yourself a glorified job there, buddy.
Right.
That's a glorified job with benefits and perks, but you don't earn any fucking money when you go on vacation or when you're sick. I mean, what's the point?
There's a lot of ways to have a happy life.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a contract person where you get
Mhm.
big fees and
Yep.
you're happy with that,
Yep.
like go on you. I mean,
Yep.
you do you. So if that's good for you, that's great. Don't delude yourself to think that thing is sellable
Yep.
because it's not. Just be honest with yourself. I like going in. That's probably going to be my next deal is like just I want to go in and leave and get I'm done. So there's
So fun.
nothing wrong with that, but don't delude yourself.
No, agreed. Let's talk about fees because I know that you help businesses, consultants alike, and help them to win kind of engagements for higher fees.
Yes.
Now, I know that a lot of our listeners, they compete on scope and price,
Right.
and that's okay in a commoditized business, okay?
Mhm.
But how does purpose actually change what a client is willing to pay for?
So I'll tell you what I get. So I
Yeah.
work as a coach to a number of consultants who are either small shops or solos.
Okay.
And they will come to me and say, I got to get higher fees. I'm getting commoditized.
Yeah.
I got to get my fees up.
Right.
And so they'll say, let me show you my proposals. And their proposals are perfectly fine. They'll say, well, what should I do to these to get the fees up?
Sure.
And my answer is, there's nothing you can do at this point.
Mhm.
Where the fee development sits is in scoping. And if the client is handing you the scope, you're going to be commoditized because you're
100%.
getting the same thing anybody else getting. So scoping is selling. And so an example would be, so I work with a marketing consultant and clients will say, well, we really need a concrete marketing strategy
Okay.
that we can hand off to an ad agency, that we can hand off to our internal team. Okay, that's great. Like she can do that. Like she's a genius. She can do that.
That's cool.
But the question she need to be asking is, what prompted you to this realization?
Mhm.
What's the risk for you if you don't do this? What's the upstream impact of this? What's the downstream impact of this? What if your competitors do this well and you don't? Because her proposal can't be, here's why I'm the best to do a marketing strategy for you. Her
Mhm.
proposal needs to be, you're in a really competitive market right now. And if you lose 6 months on bad decision making, your competitors will eat your lunch and you will not be able to get it back. So you need to have every single person in your organization aligned around what is this marketing strategy for this business? Why is it here? And it needs to be so easy to understand that even the media buyers can do it because otherwise you're just going to waste millions of dollars. So she is writing something very different. And then you're not competing on fees. That's
Mhm.
not to say money doesn't matter. It's not to say if she put it in, at $10 million, she's not going to get it. But the challenge with getting the fees up, there's only two levers:
Mhm.
your brand and your behavior in the buyer's office.
Yep.
Your brand takes years to develop. Your
Absolutely.
behavior in the buyer's office, the person who's going to make yay or nay, that can change overnight.
I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah.
I think you made a really valid point there, and I love the fact that you pointed out two things, which was the brand and you talked a lot about the scope. And when I think about the word the scope, I
Mhm.
think of it as an example of if I was going to a doctor and the doctor was asking me questions about my symptoms, if I had a problem, right? It's a bit
Mhm.
like exploring that. And then whatever the treatment plan is, the personalized treatment plan for my symptoms or whatever it is, it's a little bit like that. But what you're saying is where the price doesn't increase is that if the roles are reversed, and they say, "Well, I want this, and this is how I want it done."
Mhm.
Would that be right in saying
Yeah.
that?
And it's there's a very famous expression in I'm an American, if you can't tell, where Henry Ford said if I'd have asked them what they'd have wanted, they'd have said faster horses. And if you are truly an expert in your space, again, scoping is selling.
Yes.
And so you're having a scope conversation with them, not about what you can do, you'll
Mhm.
get to that, but
Yep.
about what are the clear business objectives. And
Yep.
so there's a great book that I read, a guy who mentored me for years, Alan Weiss, and he wrote a book on value based fees. He's not the person who invented it, but it's really good. So read that book. But when you look at a proposal, the objectives should not be, you want to create a marketing plan that you can share across the organization. That's not the objective.
Nope.
That's the how. That's
Yep.
The objective is you want to gain a competitive advantage by being early to opportunities. That's the objective.
That's music to my ears. It's really interesting. Some of the things that I'm in our business is working with legal firms, mergers and acquisitions, legal firms. And, and it's really interesting because they're in a very highly commoditized business.
Right.
They come right at the very end of the deal flow and whatever it is. And I harp on about this. You would not believe, Lisa, if you are the first to market, you can control the relationship and you can charge the most. It's as simple as that.
Right. It is.
But if you're coming last, someone else makes that decision. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. If the company, I got a call from somebody about 5 or 6 years ago, another consultant I knew, and they said, I just got an RFP from somebody, and the RFP says they want to embed a noble purpose into their sales program.
Okay. Right.
And I can't respond to this because this is your IP. And I started laughing and I said, yeah, because I've been talking to them for 6 months and they legally have to send out an RFP to 3 other companies, but it's construed in a way, you're probably the only one that's honest that's going to call me. And I said, it's construed in a way that nobody can meet it but me. And that wasn't manipulative on my part. It was,
Right.
We really had conversations about where they want their business to go and what the business implications are. And so I think about, and I think if you're the lawyers, the risk for hiring the wrong lawyers is huge. It's absolutely huge. And, people buy because you're going to help them do something they want or avoid something they can't afford to do. And as much as I like to sell to the aspiration, the risk actually creates more urgency and ups the fees a little bit more.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because I'm not going to be the one that's hauled in front of, in my country, Congress for why this thing went south. It's not going to be me.
One thing that I want to talk about is purpose statements, which are what I think that you probably agree with it. Purpose statements are useless, right? They end up on the wall of the office. Mm-hmm. Nobody really uses them, really, in a nutshell. Now, if a firm owner wanted to nail their noble purpose this week, where would you get someone to start? Like, how do they avoid the fluff, should we say, and actually nail that down?
I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay, fine. Let's go.
85% of the time they are. And they're useless for 2 reasons. Because they are a paragraph long, the number one provider of end-to-end services that helps our customers, helps the community, helps the world. We're good people. We pay our taxes. We're a good employer, blah, 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 world peace, blah, blah, blah. So they're too long. Or even if they're really good, like we help small businesses be more successful, we could have one meeting, stuck that thing on a t-shirt, and it wouldn't come alive. Excuse me. So how do you get started? So you can Google, how do you find your noble purpose? You can buy the book, it's in the book, or you can just Google it. And AI's probably got some version of Lisa that'll tell you what to do. So your purpose statement defines your aim and your lane.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
Aim and lane. Help small businesses be more successful. Small businesses is the lane. Aim, help them be more successful. That's it. We have one company that we're working with, and I just saw it because it's on all their signature lines, and they were saying this really got embedded. It's a big crane company. The division of Berkshire Hathaway. Cranes, like lift the giant.
Okay. Right.
Cranes are, like, I've learned a lot about cranes. We take the weight off your shoulders safely.
Love it. Great.
And so I use that. That one's a little more poetic. So the way that you find your purpose is identify, how do we make a difference to our customers? And how do we do it differently? And that third question, if you're the founder, on your best day, what do you love about your job? And then literally you have aim and lane. And the reason you actually do want the statement is to be clear. So then the next thing you do is you start telling the stories. If you're a founder and you're trying to find this, you want to think of some times when you really made a difference to customers. Those times when maybe you went home tired, but it was the good tired where you went, man, today we did it. Those moments when the customer said, oh my God, we would have been lost without you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. We did this. Whatever it was. And it's not just the times you bailed somebody out. How does the thing that you sell, the professional services, the hours you bill, the thing you do, the creativity, whatever it is, how does that improve life for customers? Don't wait until you have the perfect statement, but get some way of saying, like ours is, we drive 2 lanes. We help customers drive revenue and do work that makes you proud. We drive revenue and employee engagement same time. So get some clarity on that, and then start showing your team examples of how you're already doing it. And start using those stories with customers.
Yep.
And the way that you use them is you can say, one of the things I'm really proud of is we do make a difference here. I'm going to give you an example. Mm-hmm. If you do that at your next Monday morning meeting, even if you have 3 people, you will start.
Yep. I think you made a really valid point there. And I love the way that you've articulated that and pushed back on some of the questions that I've asked, because those are what I kind of find the best conversations, which is really good. Anyway, last one before our coaching session, by the way.
And I would say the reason people are so jaded on mission, vision, values, purpose, if you can call it a mission statement, you call it a vision statement. The reason people are so jaded is because even the ones that are poetic and beautiful, they don't mean it. And it's not alive on the day-to-day basis. That's why people say these things don't matter.
Yeah, it's true.
Same rate people take their marriage vows and don't mean it. And then they're like...
It's so true. What's the point in having something if it has no meaning? I mean, just whatever. Anyway, last one before we jump in the coaching stuff. And this is a really interesting one for me, but our listeners that have, maybe have a very successful firm or business, right? They've got a good team, they've got good clients, they've got good revenues. But what you'll find, and this is definitely something that has become apparent to me when I have conversations with these founders, is that they've lost the fire in their belly. And what I see is that it's become really kind of like a machine that they just manage.
Yeah.
And it's not really a mission that they lead, if you get what do you do? What do you advise founders or business owners that are in that position? How do they get that fire back?
Well, it's interesting that you say get the fire back. Because
Yes.
they probably wouldn't have a successful business if they didn't have it to begin with. They probably had that fire to begin with, or they wouldn't have the business that they had.
100%.
And so that's when you say get it back. I do concur with that. If you never had it and you have a successful business, you're an anomaly. If you like look at some old picture, like, who was that enthusiastic young woman? Let's get her back in here. So how do you get it back? And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it is to be found in customer impact. And the way that you do it, the way that you get that fire back, besides, like, if you're burnt out, you're not sleeping enough, just like, first just take a vacation and get your brain on something else, watch an old
100%.
movie, like do all the burnout things. But let's say you've done that and you've come back and you're, one day back and you're like, oh, here we go again. What often happens as the leader is you get 2 or 3 levels removed from the client work. And the client work is where your mojo started, and it's where you will find it again. Yeah. So a couple things you can do. Go out and meet with a customer and say, hey, I'd love to meet with some of our best customers. And don't go, how can we do better? I mean, do that at the end. But just say, I'm really working on, what would be a way to say it? I know, I say what Kristen says. I really want to understand the specifics of why people like us and why people do business with us. And I just really like to know from your point of view, what are the things we've done that have made a difference to you? And let them talk. If you can't get out with a customer, and if you're the owner, you should be able to. But if you can't get out with a customer, this question that we ask, how will this customer be different as a result of doing business with us, is you can ask that of your internal people, of some of the customers you already have. and wait for the answer. That's one of the problems with leaders is they don't wait for the answer. Wait it out. Just be honest. Say, I listen to this podcast. I really want to identify how do we make a difference to customers? You got 3 customers. How do you think we make a difference? And just wait it out. And you'll find, because what you're missing is the emotional connection. That's why it feels colorless.
Yeah.
Because you no longer have an emotional connection to the impact that the business is having.
I wrote down the words measuring the impact. So the work that you do over a set period of time, the impact that the business has made to that customer or client.
Yes.
That's kind of what I wrote down here. Would you say that's
exactly it? And it's also not just, well, you helped us increase our returns by 10x. You saved me 8 hours a week. If you're doing some professional service, you say you saved us so much time, say, what'd you do with the time? I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Well, I went home. It turns out I have a 5-year-old. Last time I checked, she was 3. I didn't know. Or I'm able to work on more initiatives, like really mine it, because this isn't just good for you. It's also good for the customers to think about that. But understand that when you've lost your enthusiasm for the business, the single reason that most people do that, I mean, you could be sick for all I know, but whatever. But the majority of people, the reason they lose it is they've lost the emotional connection to the impact.
Yeah.
And it feels like every day is just the same.
It's like Groundhog Day. Yeah.
Right. Here we go again. Time to get out, roll this rock uphill. And while I go to sleep at night, it's rolling right back down again. Yep. And so the more you can look around the edges for how, and you don't have to change anything.
No.
You don't have to disrupt it. And I will tell you, if you're losing that feeling, something my father said to me, if you're unhappy with them, it's only a matter of time before they're unhappy with you. So you need to fix it fast.
Yep, that's true. And I'm sure you've had those conversations. I certainly have had conversations with founders and business owners that are at that episode in their life because they've been running the business for like 15, 20, 25 years, right? And I think what you've given there is, you know what it is? It kind of, what's the word I was looking for? It goes back to the feeling, right? It goes back, it's the feeling, right? So it kind of like, you know, rather than kind of seeing it, and it is a mindset shift that has to happen more than anything else. It goes back to the feeling that we're making an impact, and how does that make us feel? Right. And we can understand how it makes us feel in a positive way rather than a negative way, then it can, you know, what that does is then it kind of like what rolls into, you know, people in our team.
Yeah. And so the thing you have to understand is if you feel like every day is the same, the problem is a feeling. It is a feeling.
Correct.
And it's usually fixed by a replacement feeling. So important thing to understand about yourself and everybody on your team. Once we get past food and shelter, human beings have 2 fundamental needs, belonging and significance. True. Belonging is I'm part of something bigger than myself. Significance is my part matters.
Yeah.
Put those together, we want to make a difference. And so when you're feeling, the feeling is because you're missing that you're making a difference. And again, if you have customers still buying from you, you probably are making a difference or they would stop buying. And so I want to be really clear. We have, like in my country, school teachers are burnt out. All of our school teachers are burnt out, and they're not burnt out because they don't think they make a difference. They're burnt out because they're overregulated and underpaid and overworked. That is a different thing. That is the solve for that. Different. And they, every week or so, they get that mojo back with one kid. And this reminds me of why I'm doing this. But they're having to overcome these overworked, overregulated, underpaid hurdles. But most business owners, that's not the case.
No, completely different. No, I agree. Well, listen, this is, first of all, for you guys that are listening in, we've covered a lot of groundwork. And I have honestly really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I think that we've really touched on some really key, what's the word I was looking for? Just some key points that I think that a lot of our listeners are going to be asking. And I think that hopefully you guys that are listening in, hopefully some of the questions that you have around this particular subject that might just kind of challenge that belief system around whether it be profitability, whether it be purpose, or whatever it is, like, and how they intertwine. I find it quite fascinating. I think it's been a really good one. Now, I know that I'm conscious of time and I know that we've got to go soon, but we haven't done the coaching part.
We're doing the coaching.
So we're going to do the coaching. So for you guys that are listening in, by the way, you know that I do the coaching part, right? Well, I'm not me personally, but you know what it is. I want you to imagine that Lisa is in the same room right now. Now, we've already discussed about, I suppose, we're going to call it a challenge, and we're going to get some coaching and some perspective from Lisa, and hopefully it should also give you some perspective as well around today's topic. So should we reveal what we were talking about?
And to be clear, we revealed the challenge. I don't know how I'm going to coach to it, so you go.
Okay, fine. So
Lifetime.
So Lisa asked me before we jumped on air, by the way, what is my mission statement, right?
Do you have a purpose, mission, true north? How do you, when people say, hey, what do you do?
Exactly. So I'm going to share that with you guys. And I think some of you already know, but anyway, so my real purpose, my real mission statement really is to help more business owners exit from their business, right? Because when I was revealing the statistic and the data with Lisa, less than 18% ever exit their business. And that makes me feel sad, right? You build a business, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into the business. And what happens is that fundamentally, most people believe that it's just easier to just wind it down.
Yeah.
And that to me I feel sad for them and I feel sad for me, because it's like, that's not what business is about. A business is about you build a business to sell it. It's as simple as that. There's no questions asked. Otherwise, it's a glorified job, like you hallucinated from today's episode. So that's kind of like my mission statement. Now, Lisa is going to be coaching on me about how we can, what's the word I was looking for? How we can get a little bit more clearer on that, but also how that can transcend into something a little bit more substantial, bit more meat on the bones, and how that can maybe a bit of an impact. Where should we start?
Well, let me ask you some questions. So
go for it.
First off, bravo. If anyone listening has this level of clarity, that's a great start.
Thank you.
You are very clear. And I want to point out some things you've done well first. It's not, your statement is about what you're helping your customers with, your clients with. It's not about, I'm a business coach with expertise and blah, 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 blah. It's, I help more business owners sell their business. So it's clear, the impact on the customer. So great. So now we want to explore. So if you're not to that point yet, use those questions I said and get yourself that point. For Adam, though, the question I would ask is, what impact on a business owner does it have when they do sell?
Great question. Well, I think it's relief, it's freedom, and I'm just thinking about some of the feelings that they have. So once they've sold their business, it's like they embrace a new identity. Mm-hmm. They think of what the new life is going to look like, and all the beautiful things that they wanted to do, right? And they haven't been able to do it because of a lack of time, and it might be that they want to, they want to move into philanthropy. They might want to go into charity stuff. They may want to help a younger generation, but it's understanding what that new identity looks like and how their exit is, should we say, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like a pinnacle, or it's kind of substantiated in a way that this is the standard, the fee that I exit my business from is going to help me to sustain the lifestyle I want, but help others to achieve what I've helped to achieve.
So tell me a little bit about when you're helping people, do you help them? So the exit versus no exit is money or no money. Do you help them get more money for their business? Do you help them in ways beforehand?
You are right. So a great question. So my goal really is to help people. So and I always educate people about this. three stages of an exit. I help them with the first two stages. Biggest problem with a lot of business owners is the first one, which is how can I build a business that doesn't depend on me?
Yeah.
That's the biggest, hardest part of the exit, right? And then the second part is the scaling part. And then the third part, I tend to then, partner with other people within the chain, because it's, that's what it is. So fundamentally, it's really kind of helping founders get free of their business so it doesn't rely on them.
Yeah. And then, so what I'm exploring here, and be thinking about this if you're listening, is I'm exploring the positive impact. Now I'm going to go to the negative impact.
Okay.
What about the people who don't meet you?
How do you mean?
Never, they go, oh, I'm just going to work in this business till I drop. Can you think of any examples of people who have just stayed in their business and never got the emotional, the financial freedom to do anything else?
I think it's a really good question. Yes. And what I was going to say to you, yeah, I have. And I can't quite understand when a business owner or a founder, they want to exit, you give them the strategy or the exit plan, and you say, listen, all you have to do is follow the instructions, right? And they just fundamentally don't do it. And you would have seen this with some of the clients that you work with. You give them a leadership plan or a sales strategy or whatever it is, right? And then 3 months later, you're like, so how's that going for you? And they're like, well, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because I didn't do the work. So, and I think that really kind of goes back to is the pain greater than the need?
So what about with people that have never heard of you? Like, I'm sure you know people that just, what happens to them? Like, they don't even know that that's an option. They don't have a plan. They're not ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
What are the implications for someone that never sells their business? What is their life like in their 50s, 60s, 70s?
Listen, it gets harder because, well, number one, it gets harder because they don't see a way out. They're so fixated and they've built a belief system that this is my life. This is just the way it is. Like, you would have heard this, Lisa, in the boardroom. This is how it's done around here. You would have heard that before. It's a belief system so ingrained into their subconscious that no matter what you say to them, they're right. And that's it. And what needs to happen really is to flip it, is I go back to, is the pain greater than the gain?
Right. If I were to explore this more,
Yep.
where I think we're going and the opportunity for you, and it's probably the opportunity for most of your listeners, is you have the clarity. I help more business owners exit. Where I think you could be more declarative and clear is when you exit your business successfully,
Yep.
you have financial freedom and you have emotional freedom. All the things that you have put off in your life, all the things that you have wondered about, all the hobbies you maybe did a little bit of, all the places you maybe saw for a weekend, those suddenly open up to you in a completely different way. And if you play your cards right, it happens while you were young and healthy enough to do it. The alternative is, and I see this every day, if I was you, is what I'd be saying, and I see this every day, is people that not only continue to work, but they actually wind up working harder. And they wind up working harder for a couple of reasons. One, the market's getting more competitive, so it's harder to keep the same revenue. And two, they're older. They're physically tired, they're mentally tired. And what I see is the difference between people whose lives, there's a misnomer that if you stay in your business, your life will stay the same, but it doesn't. Your life gets worse. Past a certain point,
Yep.
your life gets worse because it gets harder. You get older. The toll it's taken on your mind and your health and your relationships, that accelerates over time. And so most business owners are at a junction point at this 15, 20-year mark where they've got a decision to make. And I see if they go one direction, the whole world opens up. And if they go the other way, their whole world gets smaller.
Love that.
That's what I just heard you say. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would have a story, back to customer impact stories. I would have a story and I'm sure you do, of some people whose whole world got a lot bigger or maybe a lot calmer or a lot, pick a couple of prototypes. And then I would have a story of somebody who died at work, and just say, if I can save one person from dying unhappy while they worked on the schedule for next week, I want them in France riding their bike through Provence and smelling the sage or whatever the hell they have there, rather than dying doing a spreadsheet. I mean, that is why I'm here. And I think when you have those stories, it's a way for people to see themselves. I want to see myself at story A or story B. I want story A. Get him in here. And also, I understand your motivation. We're all scanning each other for what's our motivation. And so no one would ever mistake you for, money grubbing, shady guy. But when you say, and they get to do this and they get to do that, you're so excited. And then when you talk about, it gets harder and you're so sad. So it's like, I know who this guy is. He wants this for me as much as I want this for me. That's what I would suggest anyone do. Do it with your partner, do it with your team, call me. Get clear on what is the impact you're having on customers and what's the win when they do it and what's the pain when they don't.
Love it. Some good stuff. And that's and for you ladies and gentlemen, by the way, this is a great episode. We're coming to the conclusion of me and Lisa's conversation. First of all, I've got a couple of brownie points here. We've covered a lot of stuff, and especially in that coaching session, I certainly feel like what I'm doing, certainly in my own business, is certainly making an impact. But again, what I want you guys to do however you're listening to this, I want you to think, how is this applicable to you? Not about if it's applicable, but where are you at right now? How is it applicable to you? But more importantly, what do you need to do to make that shift? Very important to understand that. So I'm going to leave you with some pointers there. So and some homework, if you want to call it that. And I love leaving these episodes, which again, maybe you have further questions. And if you do have further questions, what I would do is reach out to Lisa, connect with her on LinkedIn, social media, go purchase her book, and she's got a variety of different books out there. Go over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever your bookstore is and whatever it is. But I think this has been a great episode. First of all, Lisa, this has been a great episode. It's been a lot of fun, right?
It has been fun. And I was thinking, you know what? If we have more time, I would run through a list of all the people you have helped and what they're doing now. And we would write it up and we would put it in the top drawer of your desk or your nightstand or on a Post-it. And every day you ever got tired, you would look at it and you would go, I made a difference.
By the way, I don't get tired very often, very, very little, but I think that's a good point. That's a very good point.
And everybody else listening can do that. Just think of 3 people your business helped.
It's not difficult. I mean, most people that have been in business for like 15, 20 years, you've helped
somebody do something or you wouldn't have a business.
Come on. Absolutely. 100%. This has been great, Lisa. Thank you so much. And for you guys that are listening in, please do me a favor. If you haven't already done so, please action on the things that we've just alluded to. But from me and Lisa, thanks so much for joining us on The Business Strategist. And hopefully we see you again soon. Take care and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.